The most famous Bennington Triangle disappearance is 18-year-old Paula Weldon, a student at Bennington College. On December 1, 1946, Weldon took a short hike on the long trail in the woods near Glastonbury Mountain. Apparently, she didn't leave dressed for the colder weather expected that night, so it was unlikely she intended to stay out late. The last people to see Weldon were an elderly couple hiking about 100 yards behind her. The couple reported seeing Weldon turn a corner on the trail ahead, but once they reached the same spot, she was nowhere in sight. Local police organized a thorough search of the area and offered a $5,000 reward for her return, but no one saw Weldon again. Given her choice of clothing, Weldon's disappearance seems even more baffling. She wore a bright red jacket, so it should have been easy for the couple to see where she'd gone or for a search party to recover her body. James Tedford, a war veteran living in Bennington, took a bus trip to visit his family in 1949. He was one of 14 passengers on the last trip from the previous stop to Bennington, but vanished without anyone seeing a thing. When authorities questioned fellow passengers after his disappearance, they confirmed he boarded the bus on the last stop before Bennington. But when the bus reached its destination, Tedford didn't get off because he wasn't there. His luggage remained in the overhead compartment, and his timetable was discovered lying open next to where he sat. The prevailing theories about Tedford's disappearance are he never got back on the bus to Bennington, or someone killed him before he could disembark. The first explanation, however, doesn't account for why his belongings remained. And while it's possible he was killed on the bus, none of the other passengers reported any suspicious or violent incidents. No one has posited a satisfactory explanation for how Tedford disappeared from a crowded bus without a single person noticing. In 1950, Frida Langer was camping with relatives in the woods near Glastonbury Mountain when she and her cousin Herbert decided to take a short hike. A few hundred meters from their campsite, Langer fell in a small stream, soaking her clothes and shoes. She asked her cousin to wait while she went back to camp and changed into dry clothes. After a while, her cousin made the short trek back to camp to ask if everything was all right. When Herbert arrived, however, he discovered Langer never made it back to the campsite. Somehow, in broad daylight and only a short hike from camp, Langer inexplicably disappeared. Over the next couple of weeks, search parties combed the area around the campsite for any signs of her, but found nothing at first. Unlike with the other Bennington Triangle cases, searchers located Langer's body. But the discovery raised more questions than it answered. Not only was Langer's body so decomposed it was impossible to determine how she died, but it was discovered right in the middle of an area that had already been meticulously searched in the weeks following her disappearance. How Langer went missing in the middle of the day, in an area familiar to her, and what happened in the several months between her disappearance and the discovery of her body are questions that remain unexplained. In 1945, a man named Midday Rivers led a hunting party in the woods near the city of Glastonbury. On the way back to camp, Rivers broke from the others and disappeared from view. His companions had no reason to worry. Rivers, a skilled woodsman, wasn't far ahead, so they assumed he'd catch up eventually. He never did. After a long, thorough search of the area, the only thing anyone found of Rivers was a rifle cartridge of the same type he used. No one discovered evidence of an animal attack, and his body was never recovered. Eight-year-old Paul Jeffson's mother was a caretaker at the dump in the woods near Bennington. On Columbus Day in 1950, Paul's mother brought him to the dump in the family truck. She left the vehicle to attend her chores and asked Paul to stay put until she returned. When she did, he was gone. Like Paula Weldon, Paul wore a bright red jacket. But despite such easily visible clothing, no one recovered his body. Police dogs followed his scent for a few miles in the direction of Glastonbury Mountain until it, like the boy, vanished. According to local folklore, in the area near the forest where Paul and Weldon disappeared, it's bad luck to wear red. Even before people began disappearing in Bennington and the surrounding woods, the area's original inhabitants remained wary of the eventual Bennington Triangle area. Several tribes avoided the place, maintaining it was cursed. One Algonquin legend warned of a malevolent enchanted stone in the mountains that would open up and devour anyone unlucky enough to step on it. Mountaineers and hunters who take trips to Glastonbury today report wind patterns in the Bennington Triangle are unusually chaotic and confusing, so the natural markers most hikers use to stay oriented don't exist. These eerie wind patterns provide reason enough for the area's reputation of being difficult to navigate. Whether it's a natural feature or an ancient curse, though, remains up in the air. The 5 disappearances from 1945 to 1950 aren't the Bennington Triangle's only mysteries. Since at least the mid-1800s, people reported seeing a tall, Sasquatch-like creature lurking in the woods. The first report of this beast came from the driver and passengers of a stagecoach passing between Bennington and the city of Glastonbury. When a sudden downpour forced the stagecoach to pull over, the passengers encountered a large, hairy, barefoot creature that pushed the coach over before disappearing into the forest. In 1943, Carl Herrick went missing during a hunting trip roughly 10 miles northeast of the city of Glastonbury. He was discovered 3 days later, squeezed to death and surrounded by huge, mysterious footprints. Henry McDowell, a sawmill worker in a village close to Glastonbury, murdered one of his co-workers in 1892 by beating his head with a rock. When authorities apprehended McDowell, he claimed strange voices commanded him to commit the murder, which landed him in the Vermont State Asylum. McDowell never served his full sentence, however. He escaped by stowing away in a rail car and allegedly lived the rest of his life in the Bennington woods. McDowell would have been elderly by the time the 5 disappearances occurred in the 1940s and 1950s. Still, some theorize the mysterious disappearances were the work of a crafty, secretive, and exceptionally long-lived serial killer. Like other areas famous for weird phenomena, the Bennington Triangle has had its share of UFO sightings. Residents of the Bennington area have reported seeing floating lights and strange columnar craft that resemble glowing silos. In 1984, Don Pratt reported one such craft, described it as a flying silo, and hikers in the woods near Bennington provided similar descriptions. Given the strange circumstances surrounding the 5 Bennington Triangle disappearances of the 1940s and 1950s, some believe extraterrestrial kidnappers are to blame. The Bennington Triangle inspired stories of woodland monsters, curses, and other inexplicable phenomena even before the area was colonized. What could cause such an intense concentration of mysterious sightings and events? John A. Keel, author of the Mothman Prophecies, proposed a theory: in places like the Bennington Triangle, the boundary between our universe or dimension and others is unusually thin, leading to a disproportionately high number of reported paranormal phenomena. According to Keel, in these places, which he referred to as window areas, physical reality is less concrete. Though the window area theory is impossible to prove, it would simultaneously explain the strange creatures, the mysterious lights in the sky, and the missing Bennington residents.